Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. A Maryland Park policeman with the National Park and Planning Commission, Larry Larman, patrolled the commission's historical properties, where he literally felt the inspiration for his book, Tales of the Abnormalities, Untold True Stories of Police Agencies with Paranormal Activity and Strange Oddities. Okay, Larry, what's going on here?
You ever heard of the Mary Surratt house? It's she's part of the conspiracy that was involved with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
And that place is really haunted. And at the time, they couldn't locate the house. So what they did was they painted the house red, and it's still painted red to this day. Because when they said to go down Branch Avenue, at that time it was just Branch Avenue. Now it's Old Branch Avenue. And when you go down Old Branch, it'd be a red painted house on the left. That would be the Mary Surratt house, and that's how they identified it. And that's where John Wilkes took off to go to Dr. Mudd's. I wrote this book. It took me 5 years to write this book, and what happened was that there was guys at work that were telling me, because they were dispatchers, that were telling me, like, Larry, you've been involved in so many things, you should write a book. And I said, no, I'm not going to write a book over that stuff. And they said, no, think about it. Well, this one dispatcher finally convinced me, and I started thinking about it, started doing notes, and then those became little stories, and I started to remember the things that happened. And I said, you know what, maybe I will start writing it. And I started doing page after page after page, and I would wake up every morning and I was looking forward to doing it, and it just kept doing it and spent hours on it.
What was your first experience
with the paranormal? As a child, I lived in I was a ghetto kid. Now I lived in Southeast D.C. in what they call highland dwellings, and it was a low income housing owned by the government. And what it was, they put us there, but these houses were very old then. They're extremely old now. But there was noises inside this house, as well as voices and footsteps and shadows of people coming through. And because I guess evidently it's been there so long that evidently people passed away in this house. I started receiving stuff then that things were different. It was kind of like mind-boggling to me, because it was scaring me, my brothers and I. That's where it all began, was then. And then when I was on the ship going to Vietnam, our ship had been torpedoed during the Solomon campaign of World War II. Now, I was going to Vietnam, and we were out at sea, and there was one sailor that was down inside the boiler room, and he come flying up out of there, and he's screaming. He's up, you can't make me, I won't go back down there, and you can't make me do it, and all this. And so we had to calm him down, and he was just extremely, extremely upset. And he finally said, I saw people down there that were missing arms and legs, and so they were dead, and their body parts were thrown everywhere. Well, it just so happens, we said, well, let's check the history of the ship, and come to find out, the Canberra, the USS Canberra, was torpedoed during the Solomon Islands campaign. It killed 22 sailors in the engine room, and that's what he saw.
Do you feel like the spirits just feel comfortable exposing themselves to you? Like, when was your first experience as a police officer?
Well, no, I don't think they wanted to expose themselves to me. I think one of them wanted me out of the house, and that was at the Mary Surratt house, and it wanted anybody in there, including the employees, to get out, and that was a poltergeist. It's a museum now, and it's owned by Park and Planning Commission. I'd go by it because it was occupied, and there was an outer house that housed a lot of antique equipment and guns and stuff like that from the time period. So even that place, it became haunted, and because it was the material that were bringing to that house was old stuff out of the Mary Surratt house, and we go there and patrol it. Especially at night, we get silent alarms and stuff like that, things in there. And we walk around the building, make sure none of the windows were broken out. But there was what I call occultations. There were hidden things, and they were poltergeist. And that place in there is, you just can't walk around expecting to see something. It's a small place. But when you walk around in there at night and you just be silent, things will start happening. But you just can't go in there and you start giggling and having a good time because they won't appear. Although there have been instances where they had, during this, I think it was during the early 80s, the Park and Planning Commission rented out to students the lower half of the Mary Surratt house, and they could live in there. Well, we had a call for supposedly somebody was in the house upstairs, and they could hear them walking around. And then when the officers arrived, they confirmed that, yeah, there was somebody walking around upstairs. And they went upstairs, and they said there was nothing there except there was one room, and there was something laying on the bed. And when they turned to go back to get some more help to come back up there, it was gone, and the bed was perfectly made. But they never figured that one out. They just said, leave it down as unknown noises.
This is insane. Did any of your fellow officers think you were out of your mind?
No, it happened to them also. At nighttime, they'd pull up to the building, and they would see candlelight up in the windows on the second floor, and the curtains would open, and like something was peering out at them. And this happened all the time. And not only that, they heard things inside the building, and they could hear slamming and people talking and whispering. A lot of whispering in the Mary Surratt house. And one night when I had an alarm off at about 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, I went inside the building and locked myself in because there was nothing broken out downstairs. So I just locked myself in the building, came up with my flashlight and my gun. So I went to the whole building and didn't see anything. So I went back to the dispatcher. I said, continue to hold me out. I haven't found anything, but I'm going to continue to hold me out. And I'm looking around. Well, what it was, I saw a letter from the 1800s, and I'm interested in things like that. So I started reading the letter with my flashlight. Well, the light on the paper blinded me to what was around me, and something whispered or touched my ear. Well, I was like, I came around. I thought, well, it must be a moth or something, because I see it flying around. Well, I went back to reading the letter, and once again, I was blinded by the light, and something touched both of my ears. And this time, I came around with my gun out, and I thought somebody was playing games with me. And then the whispering started, and they started whispering in my ears. And I yelled out, stop it, because it was irritating. And I yelled out, stop it. And it chased me all the way through the house and into the back room where I locked myself in. And when I pulled out them keys to unlock the door, I dropped the key ring. And I had to sit there and let them things whisper in my ear the entire time I'm trying to find the right key to get out that darn door. And finally, I got out the door. And when I shut the door back, it stopped. Just as simple as that.
Oh my gosh!
Now, the U.S. government has sponsored seances in the Mary Surratt house, and they have done that over the years. And there's been other kinds of seances in this house. But what fascinates me was when they did the government seance, they found that They said Mary was not at this location; she was at Fort McNair, where she was hung. But these other people, and they believe me, by the employees that can verify this stuff, saw people coming in the house in uniforms, Confederate uniforms, and high-ranking officials like colonels and stuff like that. And she said she saw the uniforms. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then that's just the Mary Surratt house.
I was going to say, so your book has other experiences as well with spiders and.
Well, yes, and they also the entity at Darnell's Chance. The entity at Darnell's Chance was a full-blown apparition that my partner and I ran into upstairs, and we heard him upstairs. We went upstairs, and here was a guy standing there. And I mean to tell you, he was just like I was looking at anybody else, but he had different clothes on. He had on his tassel shirt. He had on these canvas pants that didn't have any seams, and he had heavy boots on. And I'm looking at him. He had a 3-inch hair pulled straight back. He's only about 5'6", and he had his tassel shirt was open. He had no hair on his chest. I'd never forget this guy. So I looked at him. I said, buddy, you're not supposed to be in here. You're under arrest. And when he turned to run from me, he ran right through my partner. He went right down, ran through him, and ran down the steps.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, what did we just see? We couldn't believe it. And there's another incident in there where canine dogs refused to go in, and it's just really interesting place. But I said in the book, and I say it now, he may be a little scared, or their ghost may be a little reluctant to come out, but he's still there. When they were renovating the property down there, they didn't know that there was a crypt in the backyard, and there was 9 bodies found in a crypt back there in the backyard of this place. Now, it's been there since 46 or something like that, 1730s. So it's been there a long time. And these people were identified. 5 of them were Native Americans. Why, I don't know. They were kids. And the rest was Lettice. I remember Miss Lettice Lee, and she's related to the Lee family out of Northern Virginia before the Civil War. And the thing about it is, it's not all just paranormal. It's some of the brutal things I ran into when I was a policeman, when I was a park policeman as well as a deputy sheriff.
You're gone. Larry, I just lost you. Hello? Larry. Can you hear me, Larry?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what happened? I just lost you. What happened?
I was sitting here talking to you, and for some reason, the cord pulled right out of the phone.
I think
the cord pulled right out of the phone.
I think these people are following you. I think
something's happening. I don't know what's going on, but the phone. When I looked at it, I said, and then it broke. I couldn't even put it back in.
Listen, I think, Halloween might be your time to go out and go to the Mary Surratt house on Halloween and gather people around. And I think that's where you need to focus your efforts on your book. Yeah. Anyway,
I think so too.
Thank you,
Alice. Thank you very much. But there's more to it, the book, than just the things I told you. So I just let you know.
That's why people need to buy it and they need to read it, because there's more to it, believe it or not, than what we talked about.
All right. Thank you.
You got it.
All right. Bye-bye.
The name of our next book is Pirates of Atlantis by E.L. Jackson, who was inspired by one of his hobbies. So what might that hobby be?
I build model ships, and not just model ships out the box, but I combine several models to make one. I've been doing this since I was a kid.
So when you build these models, does your imagination just kind of take off?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. If you look at the cover of the book, that model on the cover of my book is an actual model sitting in my house.
Oh my gosh, it looks very intricate.
Yes.
Very detailed and involved.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, you must have a lot of patience.
No.
No?
No. Everyone tells me I have no patience.
Oh. But I mean, to put these models together, they take time, and you're dealing with little pieces and
But it's like anything that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Is not a labor. It's just a blessing to be able to do what you enjoy doing.
So tell me about this book.
Well, it's about space, it's about war, and it's about love. Those three: space, war, and love. Okay, like any good novel, it has its villain, and it has conflicts. It has the good guys, and it teaches about how to overcome conflicts, how to build relationships. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, as they say. So it sort of brings people together. The main character, a guy named the Phantom. He's a pirate, but he's not from inside. Now, I told you it's in space, right?
Right.
And say, now you have to be slightly Star Trek-ish to follow me.
Star Trek-ish. Love that.
Star Trek-ish, yes.
Okay. So the Milky Way is up in arms, right?
Yes, indeed.
And we're up in space.
Okay.
And what's going on?
Right. We got a galactic war breaking out, and we got this guy. He's sort of intervening between the good guys and the bad guys, trying to bring an end to the conflict and at the same time preserve the way of life. And it's about a whole bunch of other pirates. So he's not the only pirate in the story. There's other pirates. Matter of fact, there's a whole culture of pirates. So pirating is a way of life in this story. It's a way of life.
And one of the weapons is lightning attacks.
It's called a blitzkrieg. It's taken from World War II.
All right.
The German military, they're blitzkrieg, which means lightning attacks.
Well, you make references to the Unified Socialist Star Republic.
Mm-hmm. USSR.
The Tyrannus Reich.
The Reich. Uh-huh.
That word scares me to death.
Mm-hmm. It should. That's the bad guy.
So they're basically all at war with each other.
Correct. Let me see. Think World War II. Let me put you there. World War II.
All right.
You had Germany, Nazi Germany,
right?
Or they call the Third Reich, which why that name should, bring fear instantly. Then you got United States, USSR. You had the USA, and those three were the three big names. And I deliberately chose them names to bring familiarity to the reader, something you can relate to instantly. Like I said, when you seen the name Reich, instantly brought, back the memories. Okay, that was the whole idea. See, I'm using things that people are familiar with, but in a way that you have to read into it.
And you've got the Triangulum Confederate placing all four galactic quadrants at risk of an all-out war. Don't you feel like that's kind of what's happening right now? Do you feel like there's a parallel? And can the United Stars Alliance continue to remain neutral? I'm reading this going, Are you predicting the future here?
I hope not. I certainly hope not.
I hope not. I hope not either.
But you see how quickly once you've seen that, how quickly you start putting that together.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, this is not as far-fetched as we would think. This is not so outside the box as we would think.
No.
Okay, and that was my whole purpose of writing it, using these terms, writing it in this way. So I want to bring people into the story. I don't want them on the outside trying to figure out who's who, who's doing what, what's this. No,
Right.
bring you in. I want to bring people in. Want to include people in this.
Well, it helps that that the United States government is actually taking the idea of aliens seriously. So a war in the galaxy isn't so far-fetched either anymore. So it's kind of interesting the way you've put this all together.
No, it's not, is it?
Yeah. Do you wrap it all up in this book, or are you leaving the door open?
Oh, the door is always going to be open for the next book.
Okay.
The door is always going to be. This one wraps it up. It wraps it up.
Okay.
But the door is still open for the next book, though.
Hey, how are you telling people about this book?
Well, that's what I'm doing now. I'm setting up some meetings. I talked to, matter of fact, it was one of the meetings I had today. Was the lady setting up her book club.
That's great.
A bookstore. As soon as I get my books in, he's going to see if he can order some. Also, a couple of churches said I can come in and have a book signing. I said, okay.
Great.
So we're working on it. And I'm living in Milwaukee. I got people in Indiana want me to come down. Ohio want me to come down. And Michigan want me to come down. So it's looking good so far.
That is such great news. And it gives hope to our first-time authors, first-time wannabe authors who are listening to this podcast to know that it's possible.
It's possible.
But you gotta get behind it. Wouldn't you agree? You have to get behind your book.
Why not? Who's going to push it more than me?
Exactly. I cannot thank you enough.
Well, I thank you for calling me. Also,
yes.
Okay. Also, for the record, I'm also a pastor in my church.
I knew it. I had a feeling. Yeah.
For the record.
I bet your sermons are
Okay.
something. You've got a great voice. You have a great presence.
Thank you. I hope I put some of that into this novel. I'm really excited about it. I really am. I'm really excited about it. I know people are going to enjoy it. It's one of them kind when you pick it up, you want to read the next page. And that's the main thing I was trying to get. Read the next page. Don't just, read the next page.
Don't put it down. All right.
Okay.
You take care.
Okay. Thank you.
Trafficked in Plain Sight, A Hybrid's Own War is the name of our next book by Lisa Bramer, who details a life most of us could never imagine. I mean, Lisa, disturbing is an understatement.
Yes, I know. My family is very disturbing.
What made you write this now?
Because I was trafficked so badly, doctors had me on medications and my memory erased. But I learned that I'm not bipolar and schizophrenic and everything else they were saying about me, and my memory came back.
And you decided to get it down on paper quickly.
Yeah, because there's a lot going on in the world that not enough people know, and we're all going to die.
We're all going to die?
Yeah.
Good to know.
Right? It's very depressing, and it's hard to think about, but I believe that we do have a lot of good officers out there that I just wasn't allowed to know about, and they're doing whatever they can to stop this.
So what happened to you?
Well, as you can tell, my father's a serial killer. I didn't know that growing up. I thought, he was just a racist bastard and a woman hater. But when my memory was coming back, I realized I was putting pieces together, and now I'm an adult. So observing it as an adult, I can tell, it's not normal for a grown man to pull their kid's teeth out with pliers. That wasn't in the book. That's not going to be until my next book. But, those are things that happened to me and my sister and my brother. So I figured everything out, all the times he took me to the parks to show me where my body would go. And
where was your mom?
She was very badly abused. I don't know if she was trafficked growing up, but I do know that my father's family enslaved my mother's family.
The whole family?
Yeah. Like my mom's family works for my father's family, and A lot of people had their part in helping kill a lot of people in my family with, it's like, I don't know what they're putting in the cigarettes, but they're putting something in the cigarettes to cause cancer.
You mean the people that you were dealing with, or just the country as a whole?
The country as a whole. It happened to my mother. It happened to my grandmother, had cancer twice, but she survived both times. Most of my aunts and uncles died of cancer.
From smoking?
Yes, because I see, it's hard to talk about, like, because a lot of stuff that I would say to you isn't in that book that you read. It's going to be in future books.
All right, so let's just focus on this book. What's in this book? When were you born?
83.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Well, total now, I couldn't even tell you because my father raped so many women.
Okay.
He said I have a bunch of siblings that I don't even know about. But who I know about is my sister, who's 2 years older than me. I have a brother who's 9 years younger than me. And then I have a half brother, who is 21 years younger than me.
All right, so what's your story? What's in your book?
My family are molding me to sit like royalty, even though we live in a shit town. So how royal are we? They were making me watch porn since I could remember. Porn, scary movies. I wasn't allowed to shut my eyes. They would either hold my eyes open, like my father would hold my eyes open, or my grandfather, or they would tell me, if you shut your eyes, I'm going to beat the living shit out of you. Beatings hurt, so I didn't want to get beaten. I would keep my eyes open. They didn't start wanting to traffic me until I turned 3. My father used to take us to my aunt's house, and they used to beat me and my sister there. My aunt used to have my father beat us with his belt in her discipline room. My mother didn't know. My aunt would have her husband and her husband's sister distract my mother. They didn't even know that they were being used as a distraction. They were enslaved. And one day, me and my sister were dressed alike. My aunt didn't like that because my sister was born with blonde hair and blue eyes. So she's a natural born slave, according to them. And I'm a true German girl. And I shouldn't be associating with people with the likes of her. So they wanted me to tease her, and I teased her, and then she smacked me. And then my aunt told me to hit her back, and I told my aunt no. So my aunt told my father he knows what he must do, and he had to bring us into the discipline room. He beat us with the belt, and then when my sister went to school, they were teaching her about abuse, and she said something, and they called CPS, and then somebody in the school got wind of it, and he warned my father about it. So my father gave me the option: you either take my side and be rich and successful like my family, or you be a slut slave like your mother and sister. And I said, I want to love everyone. And he said, okay. My father got away with what he did, and I don't know if he was raping my sister before that or if it was after that, but she just went like really downhill. Like we were both very miserable. And we tried to hide it the best we could.
And how old was your sister?
3.
He was raping your sister at 3?
Oh, my sister, I think they raped them since birth because they're natural born slaves. I don't know if they wait a little bit, but I do know my brother was only a little over a year old when he started showing signs of being abused.
This went on your entire life?
Yeah. The adults were having the kids abuse each other.
And nobody knew? Nobody ever helped you?
Nope. Because they came from England. My great-great-grandfather, or my great-great-great-grandfather, I'm not really sure which one. He migrated from England with the Trump family, and their plan was to take over the United States. They don't want it to be a united country. They want it to be German.
This is crazy. How did you finally find your way out?
I met my fiance. I was being trafficked in the shelters, and the homeowners of the shelters trafficked anybody that was living inside. They always have eyes on you. And when you're doing something, whether it's good or bad, they turn it into a bad thing because you're not obeying them. I'm not obeying them. I'm not on their side. So I have to get treated like a slave. And my father would come and visit me and stuff, and he would tell me, oh, I know this place very well. These are very good people. And I sat in my head like, how the hell does he know these people? And then one shelter that I was at, he called there because he was worried about me. He thought I was going to kill myself. But I never gave my father the number to the shelter. I never gave anybody that number. But it didn't even dawn on me that that happened because I was already drugging myself on top of being drugged. And I was on like serious medications that I didn't even belong taking. So I was living in a house and I went food shopping and I met a guy that was driving a taxi. And usually if I feel comfortable with somebody, I would ask them if they could be my personal taxi so that I could, feel comfortable. I've dealt with a lot of creepers in my life. People have tried to kill me and, I want to make sure I'm safe. And not only that, but I did find him attractive and we wound up hanging out. And then I just spilled my heart out to him. I told him because he told me that he had a son, which was a minor, and I was on the sex offender registry. So I couldn't be around his minor. And I told him.
You were on the sex offender registry?
Yes, in 2015, right before Trump became president. They found out that I've been telling people that the elections are rigged. I've known that since I was a little girl, and I've been spreading it. They found out, and they had a minor rape me, so that I had to be the one to register as the sex offender.
Who had a minor rape you? Your family?
My father and his serial killer buddy.
Your dad's a serial killer and he's not in jail.
No, he's allowed to do this.
Because law enforcement is in bed with him?
Mm-hmm. Basically, I'm not exactly sure like who's higher up or who's superior is whose, but I'm figuring out here and there. My family overpowers anybody that's not German. Like, I have cousins that are German and Italian. They're going to die. And I've always wanted to warn my family, but they helped my father traffic me, and I got so drugged that I forgot what my whole goal was in life.
I mean, it seems to me your book could get you killed.
Yes, I know. I am well aware of that.
So you're going to keep writing about your life, but you can't publicize it. You can't talk about it.
Because when I say certain things, all they have to do is look it up, what happened around that time and where, and they'll know it. They'll know I'm right.
So what happens now?
Well, I'm no longer on the sex offender registry, and I don't think they can stop me from promoting my book on social media because I've told all of these racists that as much as their life matters, so does mine, and so does everybody else's in this world. And I'm sorry for everything that they went through, and I wish that I could take their beatings. I'm used to it. I was able to handle it. They weren't. It screwed them up in the head. That's why they became evil. They're covering up stuff right now, hauling out cassone trailers and throwing out furniture and rugs and stuff. Like, yeah, things are getting pretty messy in the world because I'm opening my mouth.
Well, I just hope that you can stay safe, and I hope the members of law enforcement and the people at the school who helped cover for your family get what's coming to them.
Oh, I hope they do. And they already started. After I reported, I learned that a lot of people have been getting taken down. So
be careful.
I try. I got my guard dogs. We got cameras. And I'm just so used to dodging for my life that I'm good at it. My father trained me good.
All right. Well, thank you for talking to me today.
No problem. Thank you for listening.
Soliciting prayers for the comfort of a close friend led our next author, Marcia Kline-Libertz, to write her book, Living in God's Grace.
When my very dear friend and former pastor in Leesburg, Stan Wary, became ill, and he was so ill that we knew he wasn't going to survive. And I realized there were a whole lot of folks that would pray for him if they knew what was going on. So I sent out the information that he was ill and dying and thought that we should pray for him. And I sent a prayer to them every day. And then he died, and I didn't feel like I could stop writing. So then I decided to pivot a little bit and use Bible verses and some things that I read along the way that seemed to be apropos to that particular day that weren't necessarily biblical, and then wrote a prayer. For example, during Advent, I wrote Advent prayers that followed biblical writings. Same with Easter. Sometimes I wrote a prayer that when we were having shootings, I wrote prayers about peacemaking and trying to encourage people to stop shooting and killing people with guns that were meant for war. And I wrote a lot about the children and the young families that were coming into Mexico, where they separated the children and they were sleeping on the floor in tinfoil blankets. That just broke my heart. On February 25th, I wrote from Matthew. Jesus said, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me." And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did to one of the least of these who are members of my faith, you did it to me." And I prayed, "Generous provider, thank you for showing the opportunity is always open for one to turn to you and the light. Help us all learn how to participate in humanitarian efforts to help your children as we begin to understand the plight of some of the least of these. As we participate, we stand in solidarity with them. Holy God, we take the challenge to understand the least of these throughout the world. I pray we will begin to look outward from our own individual situations and begin to find ways to help those in need. Lord God, be with those who are hurting, sick, or frightened. Be with those who teach young ones. May their lesson model your teachings, calm the anxious hearts of those who are fearful of danger, make them safe. Be with all who are giving back to help raise the well-being of others. As our world struggles with common issues, may we work together to resolve each one. Lord, please save us from our greed and sinful ways. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
So that prayer accompanied the verse.
Yes.
This is for daily prayer.
Yeah, I wrote one daily.
So you have 365 verses and prayers?
I do, because I even wrote one for leap year.
You even wrote one for leap year. That's very good.
And my hope is that people will go through and read them whenever they start. And then when they get back to where they began, to read the scripture and see how it fits their life and say their own prayer.
Have you always been a religious woman?
I have. I'm probably one of the few people that even remembers my baptism.
Well, you weren't baptized as an infant then.
No, I was 7 or 8.
So this kind of seems to be a natural progression for you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are there any thoughts that you would like to share with anyone listening who also wants to write a book? You know, what was your process like?
Well, I had a lot of book ideas running in my head, but I was more passionate about helping myself read the Bible every day and say a prayer, and helping others to get into the habit, because it's a lot of us weren't praying every day, or we were praying at night right at bedtime, and it wasn't really studious. And I want people to see how the Bible can connect to people's lives now, even though it connected to people's lives then, when the various parts of the Bible were written and the various teachings of Jesus were given. And even in the Old Testament, the Psalms are just absolutely glorious. And I want people to delve into that and to see that those Psalms are still applicable today. Many of them, maybe not all of them, but most of them are.
Do you belong to a church?
I do. I belong to Brambleton Presbyterian Church. And I've been asked by a Lutheran church to come and speak about my book in Ashburn, Virginia. And I have been asked to go to the LA Book Fair. My husband and I are going out.
Are you going to keep writing?
Yes, I have been writing. I'm thinking about something else for kids.
Well, maybe I'll be talking to you again, Marcia.
Well, that would be lovely.
You have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.